There's about a 1/4 increase in frontline NHS staff.
It's falling
since the
apart,
Conservatives
Greg.
took over in
Come
2020.
on, we've got to have a proper
Well,
chat. It's a
I
nightmare.
don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
I'm sure people on the doorstep will be telling you everything you need to know. What are you hearing?
Well, actually, I'm hearing that these are going to be a tough set of local elections for the Conservatives. It's the biggest set of local elections each round, each kind of 4-year cycle. We've got a lot of seats to defend. I'm hearing our activist base is pretty fired up, though. The Conservative councillors, Conservative candidates are definitely up for this. But I think it's going to be a difficult set of elections. It's obviously, I'm not telling anything that's not a secret, but last year was obviously not only a difficult year for the country, but a difficult year for the Conservative Party. But I'm still, I've got confidence in my activists and in my councillors.
Okay, so you're sort of managing expectations already because you're going to get your bottom spanked completely, aren't you, in the local elections? I mean, that's the bottom line is you've got these 5 Sunak priorities and you believe that he might be able to deliver on those. Should we work our way through a couple of them if we get
Of
going?
course.
Halve inflation, fine. It's on the way down anyway. Will people's mortgages go down by the same amount?
Well, look, mortgage rates, interest rates often track inflation. I don't set mortgage rates and I don't set interest rates. The interest rates are set by the Independent Bank of England and mortgage providers will then act accordingly. So that's a little bit outside of my control, but it is a prerequisite, I think, to see interest rates fall is to get to grips with inflation. That's one of Rishi Sunak's his top
Okay, well, it's on the way down
priorities.
anyway. So we're expecting that. Grow the economy. What is GDP doing at the moment? Is it up 0.1% or is it down?
It went up in January. It was flat in February. We'd obviously like to see better growth, but we were the fastest growing G7 economy 2021 and 2022. We've got a good record on growth overall. We just need to see it picking up again at the moment.
Make sure national debt is falling so that we can secure the future of public services. Okay, well, are you really going to come on or even try to sell on the doorstep our public services? Which of these is getting better in the United Kingdom at the moment under a Tory government?
Well, I think actually public services are getting better.
Oh, come on.
We're seeing far more nurses, far more doctors.
Come on.
There's about 38,000 extra doctors in the NHS since the Conservatives took over. There's be 50,000 nurses by the end of next year.
Greg, you must be...
Teaching school standards are getting better. I think public services are improving.
You're joking.
No, I'm not. I think actually good public services. We're seeing a lot of transport improvements coming through, town regeneration
Greg,
thanks
Mr.
to
Hans,
funds from the government.
Seriously? I mean, look, it might be only 23 minutes past 7 in the morning and I might be, slightly not with it yet. But are you telling the public that are listening to this, my listeners, that public services are improving? The NHS is falling apart. Waiting lists are at an all-time high. There's just been strikes. Unison said yes to the pay offer, but RCN are going out. Police and fire service in London is special measures. Junior doctors are striking. The teachers and nurses, as I say, industrial action. Trains are expensive and unreliable. You got no control of borders. Taxes sky high. I mean, let me just go on and on. Public services are terrible at the moment.
Let's have a look at the bigger picture.
No, let's talk about those individual ones. Come on.
Well, all right, but I am pointing out that there are record numbers of nurses, doctors. There's about a 1/4 increase in frontline NHS staff.
It's falling
since
apart,
the
Greg.
took over in
Come
2020.
on, we've got to have a proper chat. It's a nightmare.
I don't agree with that. Obviously, from the COVID pandemic, there is a backlog in the NHS, and that is one of our priorities. Rishi Sunak's 5 priorities is dealing with that backlog. But I don't accept the fact that our excellent public services, of course,
you can't access them.
We're dealing with the strikes at the moment, but overall, our public services are in a good shape.
I find that absolutely extraordinary that you said that. I respect the fact that you do sit there and you say it as the chair of the Conservative Party, but I don't feel that myself, and I don't think my listeners will either. I don't think if you've got 7.5 million plus on a waiting list on the NHS, if it's virtually impossible to get a hold of a GP, if every time you call somebody from HMRC to any other government department, it's a nightmare to get through. I don't think people feel that the country is working. So you've got a job to do.
Well, look, yes, there is a job to do, and the job is making sure that we deliver on the five priorities, one of which is to reduce NHS waiting lists. But I'm pointing out that in terms of what the government has put into public services, particularly the NHS, has been a big success story. The number of doctors, the number of nurses, obviously that backlog built up during the pandemic for reasons that I think are fairly clear.
Right.
And we now need to work away on that backlog.
The NHS waiting lists will fall and people will get the care they need more quickly. That was item 4 on Rishi Sunak's priorities. So what timescale for this? Because he said that in January. Are waiting lists down since January or up?
Well, look, I think we're going to have to give it a little bit more time.
Yeah, they're up.
We are working hard on this. It's not been helped by the industrial action that we've seen in recent weeks, where the government has made fair and reasonable offers. It's worth pointing out, for example, that some of the unions have accepted Unison, which represents about a third of all the relevant Agenda for Change staff, has accepted this. The Royal College of Nurses recommended the offer to its members, albeit now rejected. So we have made quite a bit of progress here in solving the industrial relations aspects. It's been a pretty generous offer. The nurses, 4% last year, 5% this year, plus lump sums of at least £1,250 for all NHS staff,
That's right.
more for nurses.
Right.
Now, actually, it's a pretty good offer the government has made.
Well, okay, but it's tough to get waiting lists down when the Royal College of Nursing are going to strike again, and this time it's emergency care in its A&E and its cancer services, which they're going to include in their next strike. So it's quite terrifying for some people. We'll see what happens with that. We look at a Tory government which is presiding over sky-high taxes at the moment. People are very confused with that. I wonder how you're going to sell that on the doorstep. The higher rate threshold has been lowered. Stealth taxes seem to be a specialisation of Mr. Sunak and Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, at the moment. That's a difficult sell on the doorstep, I'd imagine, as well. If you freeze, as you well know, thresholds until 2028, like most taxes have been, that is, in effect, by stealth, a tax increase. How's that going down?
Well, look, we want to see taxes lower, but we have to recognise that the government, and by the way, I think the public think the government did the right thing to step in during the pandemic, support businesses, support livelihoods, and support people during this past winter after
So sky-high taxes is just what we have to do to pay for what we went through?
Well, look, I think it's had a big influence on that. For example, just this past winter, the government has effectively paid half of people's energy bills through the course of this winter. Obviously, the UK, we're now seeing energy prices more under control. That also links into inflation. There's a lot of good work being done, and we want to bring taxes down as soon as we're able to.